Hello, and thank you for listening to my presentation on high cognitive effort in swimming. So the black line, this is the line on the bottom of the pool, and it's typically all the swimmers get to see or deal with for the 2 hours that they have practice, other than the times that they're on the wall and talking when they should be listening, but we'll get to that. The battle is real, so keeping the kids focused on what they're supposed to be doing gets very difficult, especially as the training repeats get longer, as we need to build their fitness. So it's really hard to keep them from singing a song or thinking about their homework or thinking about their day, and just trying to keep them engaged in what they're doing in the here and now is a real battle. So what else can I get the swimmers to see? So thinking along the VARC questionnaire, what else can I get the swimmers to see or hear or feel, or can't really read in the water, but so thinking along those questions, I started to think about how can I engage their cognitive effort that way. And so that involves things like asking them to look for certain things, if they can look for their hands during certain strokes, if they can look for how quickly the pool bottom is moving in relation to them, how fast it's going past them. Can they hear the water when they're in the water, or is their head up too high and their ears aren't in the water anymore? Those kinds of things are questions I'm starting to ask, and it's how I'm trying to fight the black line. And then what could they give me rather than just sitting on the pool deck and dictating, put your head down, keep your arms straight, kick more, asking them, how did that go, and how could you make it better? And so trying to give the swimmers the opportunity to give me an answer, and for me to respect that answer. Equipment. Using not as intended. So these hand paddles are intended to be strapped on. You put your finger through the middle strap, your hand through the bottom strap, and it just adds some resistance. So it's like a strength training piece. The kids go faster. It's all good. The straps hold it in place pretty good. And what I find is when you take the straps off, or you fold them under, or you just have the kids wear them backwards, so they're not strapped into the paddle any longer. Then it becomes a really good kinesthetic tool, because if they're pulling improperly, the paddle's going to slide off their hand. So essentially what you want as they're sculling and doing their pull is to always keep pressure on their hand in the vertical way, so front to back. But if they're sliding east-west, then the paddle's going to slide right off their hand. So if there's any point where they're losing contact with the water and slipping, the paddle falls off, and it's a direct feedback to them that, oh, I've got to do this differently. Swimmers don't always like it because it's hard to keep on their hand. As they're recovering, they have to have a big enough hand to grab it and put it back in, so it takes a lot of practice, but it is a really good tool. Bath toys. Started using bath toys a long time ago, and it really helps kids with their backstroke head positioning. And I find that whenever I go away from bath toys, because inevitably they get lost on the shuffle of pool deck, whenever I go away from it, the backstroke head position falls apart. And so I'm able to use the duck and then video the swimmers and say, look how still your head is here. And then do a side-by-side video of them swimming normal backstroke. Okay, so what's the difference? Like, what's different here that's keeping your head still? Yes, the rubber duck's on your head, but what are you doing then to keep the duck on your head? And then they're able to put that into their swimming a lot better. So that brings me into the thick questions, which I've touched on a little bit here. So technique as a discussion. So what I've found works best to create the environment where the kids can ask the questions is having a discussion on technique. And so I'm not putting a set on the board and say we're working on a high elbow free and you all have to do it. It's more of a discussion as to why having a high elbow is a good thing in freestyle. And we play around with different ways that the kids can get that high elbow up there, right? A really good example would be working on push off technique. So we played around with what was the best way to push off, and I had the kids with very, very little knee bend. So they're quite far from the wall trying to push off, and then how far could they glide, and then having them really close to the wall, like bums almost touching the wall, and then pushing off, and how far could they glide, and feet together, feet wide apart, feet then all of them kind of came to the same place, which was about a 55-degree knee bend, feet about hip width apart, and so on their own they kind of came there, but they all had different keywords, yeah, and how to get there. So that was a really good way to teach it. So setting the tone for the experimentation, just telling them like, look, I know how you should be doing this, but I want you to feel how you should be doing it, right? Like there's not one exact way. There's some parameters you want to fall into, or a list of 5. If you're hitting 4 of them, that's good. So go play with it, see what you can come back with. Then from that point on, we're trying to remember the keywords the swimmers are using, right? So one kid might describe their in-sweep on a breaststroke very differently from another, right? One swimmer might use sounds like, oh, it's more of a whoosh when I'm going really good. Whereas one swimmer will say like, well, I need to see my hands coming out if it's going really good. So just different things there that I have to remember. Having a good coach-swimmer relationship and having a good culture that would allow that kind of questioning where the swimmers are able to do it respectfully and come to me and I'm able to listen and take in what they're saying, and it might be different than what I'm saying, but just working on that so that we can have again a discussion around what is the best way to go about freestyle technique. And video debrief, so get the swimmers to break down a video of themselves. Often what we'll do in swimming is we'll do a video, we'll say you need to fix A, B, and C, go. And then they don't fix any of it. And then we come back and say, I told you to fix A, B, and C, you didn't fix any of them, try again. And instead of doing that, saying, okay, here's some things that I'm seeing. How do you think you can make an improvement there? And then have the kid come back and say, okay, what did you do differently? And then so throwing the thick questions at them gets a lot better results that way. Some reading and reacting to keep them engaged. So we have 1 versus 1. So we'll do a set of 20 50s or 15 100s, and I'll send them side by side with a delta of their best times. So if one swimmer's 3 seconds faster than the other, I'm saying, okay, you both are leaving at the same time. You both have to get back by a certain point, and we're going to see who can win this, right? So one swimmer's working on leading, the other swimmer's working on catching and passing, and those are really good race skills that we don't often work on. Drafting is another one, especially on the longer repeats for doing 800s, 400s, 1,000 meters, whatever. It's good to have the kids working on drafting. So one will draft one for 150, then they'll switch, and so they're learning how close they can get to the swimmer's hip and how they can feel their way into getting pulled along a little bit. And those are some ways I have of engaging some cognitive effort and opening it up to questions. Thanks for listening.